Hi everyone, welcome to week 9 of your Medical Language 1 course. This week we're going to be covering 2 chapters. Chapter 13 is all about the respiratory system, and chapter 14 is all about the urinary system. So those are the 2 systems we're going to be looking at. The first system, the respiratory system, contains all of the organs that are involved with respiration. So that exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide that happens within our body. The respiratory system is basically separated into 2 separate sections, so to speak, both the upper and the lower respiratory tract. So the upper respiratory tract is our things like our nose, our nasal cavity, the paranasal sinuses, the pharynx. And then the lower part of the respiratory tract includes the larynx, the trachea, the bronchial tree, and the lungs. So they're going to talk about all of those pieces and parts and the intricacies of those pieces of the respiratory tract in the first part of this chapter. And then as we get into the chapter a little bit further, they're going to go into how breathing and swallowing actually happen, the actual mechanics of it. And how these different parts work to make that happen, how that process actually works. So that exchange between the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. Then what I really want you to make sure you understand after you understand this process is, again, that terminology that's related to the respiratory system, specifically some of those pathological conditions that you're going to see treated in the pharmacy. So one of the first ones that you may be familiar with is apnea. You probably have heard of a lot of folks who have sleep apnea. So apnea is just the absence or the reduction in breathing. So sleep apnea is just when it happens during your sleep cycle. So apnea can happen without being asleep. So just kind of an FYI on that one. Asthma is another very, very common respiratory condition, as well as bronchitis, COPD. These are all things that you're going to run across in the pharmacy. Croup, cystic fibrosis, emphysema. And so as you look through these conditions and learn more about them, then you're also going to be looking at the different medications that are used to treat some of these things. So albuterol is a great example of something that we use for asthma. Typically it's used in our rescue inhalers for those people who are asthmatic. Then you're going to see some things that you're going to see them in a lot of different areas. So when we think of things like allergies, you're going to see the coughing and the sneezing and the stuffy nose medicines in all kinds of different areas. But dextromethorphan, diphenhydramine, guaifenesin, those are all part of the medications used in the respiratory system. And then the other chapter, like I said, that you're going to be looking at is the urinary system. So the urinary system is the kidneys and the ureters and the bladder, all of those things that are part of the system that helps remove waste from the blood and form urine. So again, we're going to be looking at the different parts just like we did in the respiratory system. So make sure that you understand how those parts work. And, of course, there are a few little different parts in men versus women. So that will also be making a difference in the different conditions that you're going to focus on. So again, once we learn the different parts and how they work, and how all of that moves and functions together, then I want you to focus on those pathological conditions. So when we think of cystitis or a bladder inflammation or even a UTI, urinary tract infection, a lot of times we think of a female having those, but those can happen in men or women. So make sure you do understand that. And then again, we're going to focus after we look at these different types of conditions. We're going to look at the medications used to treat them. So we might be looking at something basic like amoxicillin that's for infection. But we might also be looking at things that help with things like bladder leakage or urinary incontinence, those types of things. So as you go through this chapter as well as the chapter previously, if you have any problems or questions this week, please make sure you're reaching out to me. You may call, email, or text anytime. and have a awesome week.